Comic book readers, hello and welcome back to the Comic Literate Podcast, where we comically
and literally
review comics. I'm Ryan, also known as Comic Stan. I love comic books, but my co-host loves
regular books.
Then I make him read comic books and make him talk about them. And this week I made him read Fantastic Four, the Jonathan Hickman run, or part of it at least. But
is this a current one or a modern one?
This is from 2011.
Oh, okay, so it's vintage.
Bit vintage. Can you call 2011 vintage
It's
now?
a fine vintage.
Oh, my back just hurt. And with me, as always, my aforementioned quadrupedal co-host, it's Jamie.
I'm bipedal.
Yeah, but for the sake of the podcast, you have to now be quadrupedal. So
Dog run.
Yeah, dog run's the best.
we are both on record as loving the dog running.
When you see not a dog running, although that is special in its own right.
Yeah.
But when you see a human adult doing a dog run, not so a kid because it's less impressive. Kids can move that way. Who cares? We see an adult person doing a dog run. It's amazing.
There was an Instagram profile I followed for a good year because he was just teaching
human dog running.
He was just teaching. He was teaching himself how to dog run to strengthen his joints and his
apparently
muscles.
It's really good for that. Yeah,
it's
like a cardio yoga thing almost.
Yeah, and he got real fucking good at dog running. He was quick.
Yeah.
He could outpace most other adults.
I tell you what you love. Do you ever see the James McAvoy films Split or Glass, the M. Night Shyamalan films?
No. Is it the one where he's got multiple personalities?
Yes, yeah. The character he plays, he does a dog run because he's meant to be an animalistic, superpowered kind of character almost.
Right.
And yeah, he does the dog run and it's just fine to watch.
Is it a good time?
It's a good time in itself. The movie's we're not getting into it. I'm too opinionated on that. That's a separate podcast episode.
We also we're on a tight schedule tonight.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a short one.
Because we're both hot, and Ryan and I were just talking before we got on air. On a scale of 1 to 10, how busy would you say I am at the moment?
4, because of the podcast. Really a 10, but for the sake of the subject matter, I'm going to say 4.
Oh, nice! Yeah,
4 out of 4.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100% busy.
Yes. We've established this.
But we're just doing it in 25% increments up to 4.
Yes. And bearing in mind, every time that in the past we've said we're doing a short episode, that normally got about an hour and a half.
Yeah, we normally go long. We tend to go long, don't we?
We're going to try and take it in. We can't help. It's just our natural state to try give as much content to the listeners as possible.
Just creating that content, baby.
Yeah, and we've never missed a week. Never missed a week.
No, in what? This will be 2.5 years now?
About that, yeah. I can't be asked to work out, but yeah, sure.
Well, 100 episodes would have been
about
just
2
under
years.
2 years.
Yeah, we'll probably come up on 3 years at some point. I know, I can't be asked to work out when. But the main fact is, despite compared to more professional, I'm doing quote marks, professional podcasts, we haven't missed a week. They have. Well, at least some of the ones I listen to have. All I'm saying is we're better than them. So,
I mean, what the proof is going to be in the pudding later on this year.
Yeah. We'll see.
When I'm doing the podcast with a baby tied to me.
That's going to be, I think it's going to make for fantastic content. And speaking of fantastic, or did you have something more?
No, go for it. Okay. That was good. That was such a good segue. So it was written by Jonathan Hickman.
Written by Jonathan Hickman. You know him as one of the best comic book writers of his generation. One of the best ones doing it today. And this is one of the best examples. You might say prime example, but I think I'll save that for later. But it's one of the best examples of his work. And it was also had art by Steve Epting and color by Paul Mounts. So
cool.
With this, I have a lot of thoughts about this. This is something I read. I think I read this back when we were working together.
Wow.
Because I just got a lot of buzz of this was the best Fantastic Four run ever. And to give you an idea of how much I will get your thoughts in a second. I'm just kind of prefacing where I'm coming from with my enthusiasm for it. I read this and thought, oh my God, I love the Fantastic Four. I wasn't that big on them before. And this made me love them. Then I read whatever run came a few years later after this. And I was like, oh, it's not the characters that I'm especially in love with. It was the writing of this run that made me think I was. And I've had that several times now. I just assume I'm a Human Target fan.
Yeah.
But I could probably read something else about that character and be like, oh, it was Tom King.
And then John Romita Jr. gets his hands on it and it's...
Well, The Man Without Fear, that Daredevil one.
We liked that, didn't we?
Listen to that episode. It was almost like a weirdly inconsistent consistency or whatever.
It was a bit of a redemption arc for John Romita Jr., wasn't it?
Which happened years before the Spider-Man one we read. So, that all being said, what did you think of this comic?
Honestly,
No, lie to me, please.
it was all right.
Is that the lie, or is that...
No, this is the truth.
Okay. So, go on.
It wasn't bad by any means, and it was solid. It was solid, and it didn't fall into many of the traps that instantly turned me off things.
Yeah. I'd be shocked if I had any of those.
So it wasn't like riddled with expositional content. Like character motivations were all there. Everything made sense for the most part. I certainly didn't dislike it. I wasn't wowed by it.
I would say I think that is consistent with what I love about it. Because what I love about and Hickman's writing generally is he's a very consistent, like, trying to describe it. He's not a flashy writer.
No.
It doesn't kind of immediately jump out at you like, oh my God, this is great what's happening. With me, the stuff I loved from Hickman, it's been stuff where you're like, all right, this is pretty solid. And then as you keep reading, you're like, oh my God, everything's paying off. And like he's built up these things over like tens of issues, at least, like maybe even hundreds, where it's the hundreds is a gross exaggeration. He's built up over many issues.
Yeah.
And then when you do get these emotional payoffs, which there is one in here, which I think would have resonated better with you if you had read it, like if you'd started from the start of the run, which was like many issues before. Do you know what I mean?
It's also worth noting that this is another one of those weeks where life circumstances have...
Oh yeah, I was going to say let's have the listeners play the game of which parts did you read and which parts did you skip. So
because busy.
Yes.
New dad, baby on the way, chaos.
Yes. But my point being is when you're looking at it, even when you are reading it, you're not like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's Hickman's a very kind of like slowly build the blocks kind of writer, and then pays off engagement with the writing over long periods of time.
I definitely think this is one that needed more due care and attention than I just physically had for anything this week.
Oh yeah.
That being said, can I talk about the things I did like about it?
All I will say is, can we keep the one thing, and I think you know what it is, the spoiler of this little arc, should we try and keep that to like the second half? You know what I mean? Like the big thing at the end of this arc, which let's keep that to the second half if we can, in case there's any listeners who are like, this sounds really good. I'm going to give it a listen.
That's totally valid.
Yeah. So what were the things you enjoyed?
I really liked that Reed, Johnny, and Ben had well integrated distinct versions of all of their voices.
Yes, you could tell. You could tell who was talking without seeing where the speech bubble was coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with a cast of characters as colourful as the Fantastic Four, because they're like peak superhero camp, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, they're up there with the Avengers for me, and that, I know for a lot of diehard comic book nerds is like, well, no, the Avengers are the new kids on the block, really, in terms of popularity. And
if you were reading in the 60s, you'd be like, well, the Fantastic Four were here first.
The Fantastic Four are the great comic book ensemble team.
They're the comic book family, I think is like a good way to kind of, now that's a very common thing, but that kind of started with them, really.
Yeah, without them, without the Fantastic Four and kind of the groundwork that they laid in the conventions they set, we don't have a Bat family. Yeah,
you could argue that. There's a real clear like example case of a lot of people thought that the original X-Men were copied from a group called Doom Patrol, who had a kind of similar setup with like 4 superpowered people and one guy in a wheelchair who was not superpowered or not appeared as superpowered. People are like, oh, that original X-Men was stolen from that or copied off that. But then people in response were like, well, if you look at Doom Patrol, they're based quite heavily off the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Like, without the person in the wheelchair, they have a similar kind of like family dynamic of like the father figure, the mother figure, the boyish one, the older, looks like a monster kind of character. So that's like a very clear, like, influences this, which influences this, and influences this. And Fantastic Four was near the kind of start there.
And obviously, DC did something different with the Justice League.
Yes.
And so I don't think that's broadly as comparable. And so, I think the fact that we got really distinct character voices for these characters, and what's Reed Richards' missus called? I don't want to call her that.
Sue Storm.
Sue Storm.
Yes.
Like, Sue Storm really shined here.
Yeah.
I thought her whole arc was really cool and really interesting. And so, Yeah, I found the characters enjoyable. I found, and you had hinted at this for me before, in talking about Reed Richards' daughter, and her relationship with Doom.
Yes, and that was kind of part of the reason why I picked this arc rather than the beginning arc. So, beginning arc is quite well received as well. Like, kind of lauded as one of the best, like, Fantastic Four stories, even outside of like specific runs.
Yeah,
but I thought this one better because it had a better kind of ending thing we can talk about there. But yeah, that first issue. Shall we do starting with the arting for a bit first, and then get more into the story? Because the art I've got a bit to say on.
I didn't love it.
I was going to say kind of that.
Yeah.
So the art here is very early 10s Marvel style. It's very similar to like Civil War, for anyone who's read that, where it's quite grey, quite muted, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'm kind of on the fence here, because on the one hand, Fantastic Four are meant to be that group that's meant to be quite colourful and bombastic.
Yeah.
I mean, you look, the iconic 60s is obviously, like, it's known for that, even though they were all looks like that at the time, but obviously that's when Fantastic Four is quite well known. First appearance of Galactus and Silver Surfer. We've got a previous episode on that. Maybe I'll link in the description if I remember. But also the modern one happening right now, written by Ryan North, I think is his name. I might have gotten it incorrect. But anyway, that is also quite colourful and quite high contrast colours and bright and shiny and stuff. And I think this, where we're catching it in the 10s, they had a bit of like, I was trying to think of it. I think the 10s culturally had a bit of like earnest happiness or joy or that kind of stuff was considered maybe a bit cringe.
A bit gauche,
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Cringe is probably the wrong word. Gauche is probably the better term for it. But so I think then all these comics kind of look like this. So on the one hand, it doesn't suit the characters especially, but I think it does suit this more somber tone that this title has and Hickman's writing has here.
For our younger listeners, it's worth noting that the early 2010s were directly preceding a huge economic crash.
Oh, yeah.
It was depression time. Everybody, for adults living in the 2010s, particularly for young adults like us trying to make our way in the world, it was a real shit time.
Yeah.
Everyone was fucking skint, basically.
Which there is a fun reference to here at some point, which we'll get to.
But one thing I will say to it, I read a book recently that an art graduate friend of mine threw at me. And he was like, you talk about art on a regular basis.
Somebody literally threw a book at you. But go on.
Physically threw a physical book at me. Like I was helping him move and he went, oh, by the way, you should fucking read this, and threw it across a garage at me. It's a book, and it's
you
like... You
live such a fascinating life, but go on.
It's seminal reading in art schools.
Yes.
He was like, this is something that's on every reading list of every art course, regardless of whether you're a graphic designer or an animator or a fine artist. And it's basically this woman tried to depict the Red Riding Hood story using only shape and color. And so it goes really deep into compositional theory. And something that I've been kind of approaching the art in comic books with this in mind, but haven't been talking about it because I haven't wanted to launch into that. But I felt that this week it was really relevant, because something that I noticed the artist doing really well here is putting characters into really prominent or less prominent parts of the frame, panel to panel, to draw your eyes to certain characters in certain moments. And so there is a panel where, and again, this is kind of bread and butter stuff. You put something in the middle of the panel, your eye's going to be drawn to it.
But then we've seen comics not do this so well. So there's a lot of stuff that we say like, well, this is just basics done right. But,
But there was a scene where Johnny, what's his name?
Johnny Storm, yeah.
No, but what's Johnny's...
Human Torch.
Human Torch. Human Torch is talking to Reed Richards' daughter. And again, there's a moment where she's kind of off-center in the frame and he's dealing with things. But then the next panel pulls into her because he's asking her a question and she's giving a really important answer for the action. And so even if you are only scanning through it, which to be clear, at certain points I was, while I was scanning through certain issues just so I had an understanding of what was happening, so I could be a bit more present in the way I was reading the more important issues, my eye was being pulled to the right character at the right time because the composition of each panel was there. Like they were laying each panel out and the composition of each of those individual drawings was pulling my eye to certain characters. And again, I think you've got this big, bold, grounded shape in the thing. And there's in compositional theory, if something is thinner at the bottom, wedge-shaped, it looks unstable. If something is flat at the bottom, it looks very stable. And the way the thing was drawn kind of didn't change panel to panel, but there were moments where he was supposed to be questioning things and he was supposed to feel unsure. And he was pictured in such a way that you kind of saw more of his bottom half and he was more pointy.
Yeah.
And there were points where they needed the thing to be like present and powerful. And so they were showing more of his top half in the panel to make him look more grounded. I would argue this is probably something that a really good artist does subconsciously.
Yeah.
But it was all there. And so I agree with you that, like, stylistically speaking, the art wasn't anything to talk about. But I think in terms of like raw composition and like the way the shapes laid on the page and the way the art actually looked, it was really solid.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've also made a note of something which kind of supports what you're saying, where I always make note, and I think you subconsciously, we always focus on like the big splash pages.
Yeah.
And like, because that's like a great kind of example of the art at the time. And I made a note of some. I'm not going to bother reading them out just because there are great splash pages in there. You will see them when you read them. But what I found the common thing, referencing what you're saying, is a lot of the best ones, there are big celestial characters. There's a race of beings called the Celestials who are giant. They're like galactic-sized giant space beings.
Yeah.
But the way that they have like normal-sized people in frame to these gigantic cosmic beings are just really well done. And again, even though the colors, like I said, aren't especially bright or eye-catching or contrast or anything, they still manage to get across like the with the scale and everything, like the kind of a feeling of awe when you're kind of seeing like and it's not like, especially in like superhero comic stuff, you see a lot of it in the kind of more Lovecraftian way where it's like, we are insignificant, therefore this is scary just by, you know,
and
how big it is.
Galactus is here, isn't he? And so it's like there's always scope. When you see Galactus in a story, you know it's going to be a bit more celestial.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but no, I agree with you. The way that stuff was all composed was really solid and really... it just sort of led the story along quite nicely.
Yeah.
And so I agree with your critique of the art. I agree that there is something inherent in this era of Marvel where things do look a bit bland in terms of palette. Purely stylistically speaking, it's a little bit bland. But when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it and you start looking at it on a compositional level, it's all really well composed.
And especially a shame because this is the era of some of my favorite writing. It coincides with Hickman being quite prominent in Marvel because he did this, then he did the Avengers run, and then that led into the big Secret Wars crossover event.
Which essentially led to the MCU films, really.
Well, the upcoming Avengers ones are Secret Wars. So, and they're basing on this version, not the original 60s version, I think.
Yeah.
Because the 60s version was just kind of a big like, oh my god, all the Marvel heroes you love are all together now. They're on a battle world planet and they have to work together. Like, it's Spider-Man and this Fantastic Four. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Whereas the Hickman one was a lot more like big cosmic story leading to this big thing happening with Doom at the center, and they're doing Doomsday, in the MCU, so it all makes sense.
He gives good story, doesn't he?
He gives fantastic story, right? I think I'm going to subconsciously use that word a lot. But yeah, Hickman is just one of those writers who just, you gotta give him big stuff. Like, it's kind of interesting that right now, the thing he's doing, which I and we both love, is the Ultimate Spider-Man, which is, it's a kind of more grounded story than he normally does, but it's part of a bigger framework which he started. So. Yeah,
I mean, I think the reason that he's doing so well in that is because the Spider-Man, the Ultimate Spider-Man is at its core a family story.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, we're seeing a lot of him with Uncle Ben, we're seeing a lot of him with Mary Jane, we're seeing a lot of him with his kids. But you're absolutely right. He kind of created that little pocket within this big wider universe that he's shepherding.
Yeah. And then he was like, now I get to do this version of Spider-Man, which it turns out everyone wanted for bloody years since One More Day.
Yeah. I mean, I think, what Spider-Man fan doesn't want to see Spider-Man actually get to age up a bit and have a family? And
apparently the ones that work at Marvel. Or at least higher up in Marvel.
Fucking A, yeah. There has been a pretty consistent sort of consensus at Marvel to not let Peter Parker be happy for quite a long time, hasn't there?
And then Hickman was like, I'll do your Ultimate Universe on one condition.
Spider-Man finally gets to have some little ones.
I was like, we'll just give you more money. It's like, no, Spider-Man has to be happy. It's like, but that's impossible. We can't do that for arbitrary reasons. So, moving on to the story and the overall story. Before, again, we're leaving a big spoiler towards the end of this story arc, but a kind of clue to it is the actual overarching story. So this story arc is called 3.
Yeah.
And the reason it's called 3 is fairly obviously it's one of the Fantastic Four will die.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of story arc of this thing. And I think what's interesting here is it's interesting and it sets up in the way that superhero comics, like someone's going to die, but you know they're going to come back eventually anyway, so it's hard to make it feel real or anything.
Yeah.
I think this was a much more interesting way to be like, one of them will die, and now you're seeing it play out to which one it can be, and then it does really interesting stuff to kind of put each member in their own kind of story, where it's like, they could die doing this, like they're all in pretty dangerous scenarios. So starting in the beginning, the reason why I picked this arc to do for you to read was, we start off with an issue mainly involving Valeria Reed going to speak to Doctor Doom.
Uncle Doom.
Uncle Doom.
She calls him Uncle Doom.
What did you think of that? Because I've been hyping that up. So did that meet your expectations?
It fully met my expectations. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was even cooler when she sort of tells Reed that
she's been to see him.
Yeah, and Reed's like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It'd actually be quite useful in this situation.
He's been our nemesis for decades. He's tried to kill us an uncountable number of times, but also you are smarter than me and him. So if anyone is going to be all right, it's going to be you. Yeah,
exactly that. No, I thought that was really cool. And you'd hyped it up, and I'd always kind of loved that idea. It reminded me of when Carl and Negan became friends.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, oh, well, that tracks. Like, it makes sense that there would be this begrudging respect between these two characters, and that Doom, even though she's... Because I think the interesting thing about Valeria is that they've written her to still be a child.
Yes, it's Hickman, like you said this at the top, Hickman is so good at writing characters to sound like the characters.
Yeah.
And I think there's two examples. One is Doom and Valeria, and the other later is Reed and Galactus.
Yeah.
He writes intelligent characters conversing with each other to sound realistic.
Yeah, I think the thing that really charmed me about it is that they didn't fall into the young Sheldon trap,
where it's just a lot of big words and very overt autistic like traits, like every smart person's autistic kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. And she is presented as a child who happens to be uncommonly intelligent
and surprisingly well adjusted.
Yes,
but that's because she's brought up in a family that are themselves like relatively normal for superhero families.
Yeah, I mean, Reed and
Sue Storm, but yeah.
Is she Sue Reed now?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, they got married.
Yeah, so...
Stanley and Jack Kirby were at their wedding.
Pardon?
Stanley and Jack Kirby attended the Fantastic Four's wedding in the comic. They were drawn into as part of the audience.
Didn't we do a thing on that?
No, that was Deadpool's wedding.
That was Deadpool's wedding. But... yeah, she was written really well, and I did enjoy the interactions between her and Doom. It was kind of like they were sort of sparring, but also there was a level of warmth there, but you could tell it was begrudging on his part.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was really interesting. And I feel as though, you know, he really, it humanizes Doom in a really unusual way.
Yeah, I find Doom to be, and most comic book fans do. Doom is one of the most fascinating kind of multi-dimensional characters.
Yeah.
From the 60s. Like, even then, he had a level of depth you wouldn't normally associate with comic book characters.
Well, certainly comic book villains.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because there was a point where even if the heroes started to become a bit more multi-dimensional, the villains were still, wah-ha-ha-ha-ha, you have discovered my evil plan, Mr. Bond. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what's funny about Doom is he could do both. He would at times be that, like, you've thwarted my plans kind of thing. But then you would also have the story, the reveal of like what happened to his face and how that got burned. And if you want to see an interesting video on that, check out the Comic Stan YouTube channel for an in-depth video on that.
Right.
But
you got something to plug that into?
Yes, the plug. Yes, very good. I had no rebuttal because I was like, "Wait, was he on?" Right.
It was a creeper, wasn't it?
It was a slow burner. So with
like a plug that you've left halfway out
that's caught fire.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I like my toast. I don't put it in the toaster. I cook it on the flames of the electrical fire. Yeah. So
anyway,
this is a great podcast. So Doom,
is it?
Yeah. Well, probably. Doom is really multidimensional. When he had the whole face thing, it fleshed him out because, for one thing...
Ironically.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, we didn't know if his face was actually fucked up or if it was a minor scratch, but he was embarrassed by it because he was a perfectionist, or if he was fine when the original accident happened, but then fucked up his face by putting the mask on because he was a perfectionist. So you had all these different options, and it let you infer things about the character. And as the years have gone on, he's just continued to be really interesting. And I think his relationship with Valeria is such a great added layer to his character. So there's, with all comic book characters, everyone has the version they like. There's the whole thing where people argue whether stuff is canon or not. When there's decades of material, it's like, who gives
nothing
a shit?
Is. Everything is and nothing is.
Yeah. So I am of the opinion, I think everyone else should do this as well because it's much easier. Take the stuff you like and ignore the stuff you don't like.
Yeah, totally.
Because also, your opinion of a character and what you think of them doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So who gives a shit?
It doesn't matter to anybody else, but it matters deeply to you. So sit with it and enjoy it.
Exactly. So my interpretation of Doom from this, like what I read from this and built onto the character, or my version of the character, let's say, I think Doom here begrudgingly has to respect anyone who he views as even close to his intellect.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd ever... I think most people he would not ever admit that they're smarter than him, even if he really believed that, except Valeria maybe, because Valeria's not... I think he's able to respect her intelligence and even maybe consider it being higher than his own because she's not a rival to him.
She's not a threat. She's a child.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And maybe he didn't even know this about himself. He's just kind of finding it in the moment.
Well, it's so interesting because his character is quite murderous, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's tried to kill her dad, her parents.
He's tried to kill her dad a bunch of times, and she feels confident enough to just wander into his gaff and be like, hello.
Yeah.
And he's like, you shouldn't do this, but what's up?
And I think Valeria has an element of, you've tried to kill my family a bunch of times, but also, I don't know many people that I can converse with on my level that aren't my dad. Yeah. So it's like, by default, the only other person you can really go to is his arch nemesis. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. It kind of reflects well on the Doom-Reed relationship. Yeah. Because Doom and Reed are so close. You know that whole, what's the cliche? We're very alike, you and I. You know, when the villain says that. Doom would never say that about Reed. He's like, no, I'm way better than you, and you fucking suck, and I'm going to kill you one day. Like, that's Doom to Reed. And they would be, they were good friends. Different versions, I think it's fun where they were in college together. Yes. And they were like rivals and because Reed was smart, but he was also like friends with people and stuff. Doom was the incel in the corner, like everyone hates me because they know I'm better than them. Like that kind of view.
Reed was a bit like the guy who worked on the Manhattan Project.
Oppenheimer.
No, the other one.
I'm surprised you thought I knew anyone.
Oppenheimer wasn't Manhattan Project.
Okay.
Was he Manhattan Project?
I think the Manhattan Project informed what they did.
He was really clever, but he was also an extrovert and liked to play the bongos. What was his bloody name?
I have no idea.
Google Manhattan Project scientist bongos. Do it now.
Right.
It'll come straight up.
Maybe doing a quick episode here.
Yeah, I know, but this is worth it.
But this is important.
It's tantamount to my point.
Apparently someone called Feynman.
Richard Feynman.
Feynman, yeah.
Richard Feynman was a particle physicist who worked on the Manhattan Project, but a lot of the other physicists found him a bit unsettling because he was a people person.
Yeah.
He was an extrovert, he liked people, he was gregarious, and that just it's not a personality type that's often drawn to like heavy theoretical science because there's a lot of time alone inherent in that. Reed Richards is kind of that character, isn't he? He's gregarious and he's likable.
Well, there's a fun part later where Sue Storm is going off to be a help with what's the word? I can't remember, interpolitical, geopolitical.
And ends up becoming queen.
Yes, however that works.
Somehow.
Which is a spoiler, but also it's just a fun one along the way.
It's not the big spoiler.
Not the big spoiler. But so, she goes to basically act as like a in-between for
like
these
an envoy.
these warring Atlantean people. Whatever.
Yeah.
And as she's going, I thought it was funny where she says, "And keep the house clean for me, Reed," or while she's getting on the car. And I thought, not only is that just a funny little bit of like, haha, man's got to keep the place clean, while the woman's away kind of thing. I think it was almost like it's a more dimensional bit because it's Reed is the kind of person who is a good father and a good family man and a good friend and social and stuff. But I think the whole like my toxic trait is kind of thing.
Yeah.
His is if something gets his fancy, he will lock himself in his lab and just do science hardcore for days on end. Yeah. So I think Sue's kind of like, it's not like a keep the house clean. It's like, don't just lock yourself away doing science.
Don't do anything weird, kiddo.
Because we know what you like. And Sue is kind of the human anchor to Reed, which...
Yes.
And I think that says... I think there's a trope of like the man is smart and brilliant and the woman's abilities are more like social or whatever.
Yeah.
But Sue, I mean, again, she's going to, like help negotiate treaties between two warring factions underwater. Like,
she's a fucking force in her own right, isn't she?
Yeah, exactly. And
she didn't even need to be written by a BDSM weirdo with 2 wives to get there.
No, exactly. Although she didn't start off great, though.
That is a Wonder Woman reference.
Yeah.
For anyone that's interested in looking into what William Moulton Marston.
Yes, I think that's his name, yeah.
William Moulton Marston.
But I mean, those 60s Fantastic Four, she's like, I'm going to change my hairdo and impress Reed. And
oh, yeah, that is a thing, isn't it?
But she's come leaps and bounds from that original incarnation.
Well, the culture has come leaps and bounds.
But I think even, like, she's never had the superhero, was it skimpy outfit? I say never,
Yeah.
she probably has once or twice, but she's never been known for having, like, she's always had the classic Fantastic Four
She's never had
jumpsuits.
the tit cut out that Supergirl got.
Exactly. Power Girl. Is maybe Supergirl or whatever. So yeah. But anyway, but that kind of leads us on to another point I want to talk about. This is kind of your first introduction to the character Namor. Right?
Yeah.
And the thing about Namor is I thought this was a brilliant kind of showing of the character, because basically the thing about Namor in relation to Fantastic Four is he's a massive arsehole who only cares about his kingdom and ruling it he's basically, if anyone does know, he's Marvel's Aquaman, basically. Yeah. But he's a massive arsehole, completely unpleasant, total dickhead, and he's also almost equally as bad, a massive simp for Sue Storm.
So I got that. That came across.
When he was like, I love you. Like,
yeah.
He didn't say that, but...
He reminded me of somebody, and now it clicks that character was clearly based on him. You know that Rick and Morty episode?
Oh, Mr. Nimbus.
Mr. Nimbus. Is he based on...
I think more so him than Aquaman, yeah.
It must be, right?
Yeah, short black hair, I think, is closer.
Short black hair, lives in the sea, bit kinky.
Yeah, but when I say simp, I mean like the more wholesome... So I had this... I think I saw online, there's like ridiculous conversation. People like arguing the definitions of... what are they? Simping and gooning. And I think the difference is...
I don't know what either of those things are, Ryan.
You're not as terminally online as I am, so it's probably best that you don't. For anyone new listening who does knows, simping is the PG version and gooning is the X-rated version, if that makes sense.
So what are simping and gooning?
Okay, so massive tangent. We're going to keep this short. Simping is the term of, it's basically the expression for guys who just fall over themselves for a woman. Like, it's that kind of like,
that's sweet.
Oh yeah, whatever you, like, I'm there for you, like, I'll do whatever you need kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's simp is an acronym, which I don't know if I remember correctly. If I do, I'm probably not going to say it because it's not that great. It's something about, I would cringe to say it.
So
look up
gooning.
Gooning is basically just marathons of masturbation.
Right, okay.
Like, it's that kind of thing.
Is this like Gen Alpha, Gen Z, young people talk?
Probably, yeah. Like I said, I only know because I'm terminally online.
Well, I feel as though only a teenage boy would come up for a word for, like, wanking a lot. Because that's the only time in your life when you can...
They needed a word for it, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the only time in your life where you do that, and you do it often enough that you're like... You know, after like the 13th wank, you're like, I really need a name for what I'm up to here.
Well, some of us, we don't know about that, but we'll take your word for it.
You were a fucking... Look, right?
Anyway, moving on.
I was a busy teenage boy. I didn't have time for that bullshit.
You just heard other people like, we need a word for this thing we do. And
Yeah.
you're like, in 15 years' time, maybe
I'm going to go off and do some karate for a bit.
which we don't have a word. We have a word for it, it's called karate. Anyway, point being, it's Namor, I think, being an unlikable character, but also like pathetic, like a violent dickhead in some ways, and also this
A simp.
sad kind of like Sue Storm gets the better of him here in a way. That the basic story is she's brought to help negotiations, and then he ends up killing one of the other negotiators, or like the king of the world. And he's like, yeah, I planned to do this the entire time. He's like, they're a bunch of dickheads as well. Like, they were going to turn on me, like, based on their tribe from thousands of years ago, whatever. And then their tribe's like, no, we weren't going to do that, actually.
We've changed.
Yeah, and Namor was like, fuck you anyway. And then it turns out Sue Storm becomes the empress of them.
Yeah, how did that happen?
I think it's because it would have fallen to Namor, but Namor doesn't have any kids. So then it was like a next of, not next of kin, but like the next in the lineage or whatever.
But how was Sue Storm the next in the lineage?
Because the role she occupied within that, their rules meant, oh, if it's not that person, then it has to be this person. You know, like how it's not like whoever becomes Speaker of the House in America is their weird kind of what's it, succession plan or whatever. It's just weird.
I don't spend enough time thinking about America or American politics to understand that reference.
I only use that because I know ours is a bit more direct. It's like Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister. I don't know what it is after that. But
well, no, it's Prime Minister. Is he the deputy or the shadow?
I mean, I don't know, but surely it's the Deputy Prime Minister, isn't it? You would think.
No, it's the Prime Minister and then the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
See, this is what I mean. This is what
second in command.
You're proving my point. Like, it's some other position that is the next in line if someone is.
I don't know what leader of. Yeah, so it's Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer, and then it's the leader of the opposition, and then the Shadow Chancellor. Because the opposition party elect their own cabinet, and that's the shadow cabinet that kind of make their own plans for what they would do, so that in PMQs they can go in and say, oh, the right honourable gentleman stole 20 pence from the disabled this week.
Order. They say that a lot.
Well, no, because that guy's retired now, isn't he? So there's a new speaker who says order differently. It's all very terrible. You watched PMQs recently? It's fucking wild out there.
I'm more enamored with American politics. I find it fiercely more fascinating.
So I think people have this perception that British politics is going to be really staid because we're British. And, hello, I'm English.
Compared to American politics, it is. I can assure you of that. But
the way they debate in the Commons is wild compared to how they debate in the Senate or the House of Representatives in America.
Yeah, they do a lot of like paper wave, like and all that. And cheering and stuff.
Well, they just fucking insult each other. It's great.
But they have to do in that special way where it's like, I think the right honourable gentleman would maybe think before he speaks next for fear of making everyone believe he might be a fool. Or something. Like, you can't just be like, you dickhead.
Do you know the two pedestals that they stand on are set the exact distance? It's 2 sword lengths away from each other so that they couldn't duel.
Just get a bigger sword, surely.
They have pegs. Their coat pegs have an extra peg for their swords still to this day.
Well, I don't think I'm going to vote for anyone unless they don't have unless they have a sword. Like, let's get that back in, I think. Which
British politician do you think would be most likely to actually take a sword into the Commons these days?
I wish I knew more of them. I could say that more about American congressmen or senators.
Do you remember the one who had the Jags who got egged and then punched somebody?
Yeah, probably him. Or what was
John Prescott.
Yes.
I reckon John Prescott could have thrown down with a sword.
Yeah, I think he would have gone for it for sure. Was Gordon Brown, I think, would be the kind of guy who would attempt a sword.
He was blind in one eye.
No, that wasn't Gordon Brown. That wasn't. Oh, but in one eye, yeah.
Yeah, Gordon Brown. Yeah, no, there was there was the Labour politician who was fully blind.
Yes, that's who I was thinking of.
Ken Livingstone.
No, Ken Livingstone's the London one, isn't he?
Oh yeah, Ken Livingstone's the London one. Yeah,
saying bollocks.
Yeah, Ken Livingstone was the mayor of London. I forget the blind guy's name. He was really well liked though.
Boris Johnson with a sword would literally be like a monkey with a sword.
Yeah, it literally would be, wouldn't it?
Like, put that down before you hurt someone else. We don't mind if it's yourself.
For our American listeners, British politics is, I would argue, a more colourful cast of characters than American politics.
I would disagree.
Okay, they've had one nutcase recently.
What, in America?
Yeah.
We don't have time to get in to all the nutcase things that American politicians have said. So all I'll say was, you're wrong, and I will send you some clips.
Okay.
I'll send you some.
Okay.
So back to Atlantean politics.
Yes.
All I'm saying is it was a fun part where Sue becomes the leader of the opposition. She's like, right, Namor, you are taking this deal, and we're going to have peace because I'm fucking sick of all this.
Yeah.
I've made a invisible dome around the place to stop you kicking off and killing everyone.
Yeah.
So we're sorting out now. And he's like, how dare you speak to me? And then she makes a invisible armor thing like on her arm with spikes to bitch slap him, which I thought was fantastic. And he falls down and he's got that angry look. And then he goes, you are magnificent.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's gross little pervert.
How he can go from just like that angry dickhead to then just pathetic, like, have some self-respect. Like, come on. Like, Namor is a uniquely dislikable character, and I enjoy whenever he comes up, you know?
Yeah.
What's interesting about him as well, to not go on too far a tangent on this podcast, but
where we've just had a conversation about John Prescott using a sword.
Yeah. Namor's the kind of character who dislikes everyone. In a similar way like Doom, he thinks he's better than everyone. What's interesting is he fought alongside Captain America and Bucky and the old robotic Human Torch in World War II.
Oh, right,
I have no idea why. It's weird. There's one of those facts I should look into to find out why. But I also feel like...
I think there's a video in that.
Yeah. Why was Namor fighting in World War II? That actually is a good one. I'll make a note of that. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I want royalties for that.
Yeah. As soon as I make some money, I'll go your way.
So what, 2048?
Yeah, probably, yeah. If I may, I'll be like, here's £5. So
£5, which will get you but 1 penny sweet after hyperinflation.
Oh, yeah, and the land wars and all that.
Yeah.
So what I think is interesting is I think Namor probably the only person he does respect other than himself is probably Captain America. Yeah. Which just goes to show I think everyone loves Captain America, except the Red Skull.
Everyone respects Steve Rogers, man.
Exactly.
Who don't like... Is there a comic book character?
The Red Skull.
Yeah. But there's not a single hero who at some point hasn't deferred to Steve.
Even, I mean, the a prime example. It's not the prime example, but it's a prime example.
Something can't be a prime example.
It's a prime example of this specific, the prime example is like the one for the episode.
Have we had that yet?
No, not yet. A prime example is the fact that the Punisher really respects Captain America, and he does respect any of them.
He doesn't like any of them.
Yeah, and I think what it is, I mean, he doesn't like most of the heroes because most of them have these no-kill policies, and he's like, well, that's weak as fuck. Like, your bad guys are getting at... He's like, name one of mine. Name one of my nemesis. You can't, because they're all dead. The only one you can name is Jigsaw, because he's got a fucked up face, and they keep bringing him back because he's the only one that people recognize. Yeah. But I think with Captain America, because he fought in the war, I think the implication is Captain America did and still does will kill when he has no other option and he feels it's necessary. And so I think Punisher's like, yeah, you're the guy. Like, also he grew up like idolizing him as well. Great bit in Civil War comic, original Civil War one, where
60s.
No, sorry, the Civil War comic from 2008, 7 or 8.
Yeah,
but where the resistance that's led by Captain America, they bring in the Punisher because he brings in an injured Spider-Man. And he's like, we need help here because Spider-Man's just been betrayed by Iron Man. They have some villains, like some non-violent, not even non-violent. They have some villains who aren't particularly big. They're not well known, but they're like captured them through somehow, and they're maybe going to bring them on board because they're like, well, they're not that bad, or we need people. Then the Punisher just fucking kills them, like executes them when no one's looking. So Captain America finds him, was like, and they were like handcuffed and stuff. So Captain America's like, you fucking piece of shit. Like they were no threat to anyone, and you're just a psychopath. And he's beating the shit out of the Punisher, and Punisher's not doing anything. And eventually Captain America's like, why aren't you fighting back? Kind of thing. And Punisher's like never could fight you. Like that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And Captain America's like, just leave, just get out of here, get out of my sight kind of thing. So yeah, again, and one of my good representations of the Punisher, which I take on for the character. So back to Fantastic Four. I think we get into the build up of the the build-up. We've
been going for 45 minutes. There is a big spoiler. I think you should just drop the big spoiler.
We're into it now. So the big lead up to one of them is going to die. They're all put in different areas. The Thing is made. So this is a great.
The Thing loses his power and then gets really sad when he gets it back.
Yeah, but so the thing with that is, you might have skimmed this part. What is the foundation, which is basically all those kids that they're all genius kids, and Reed is just kind of like, we'll get you working on stuff, and it's like summer camp but for genius prodigy kids or whatever.
Yeah.
Because we've got one here anyway, so you might as well join us. And there's a dragon amongst them for some reason, can't remember why. They come up with a formula where basically the Thing can be human for a week of a year. So he takes it every week of every year he will be normal for a week, basically. And he goes out, he has him and Johnny, they go out, have a night in the town, they go play poker with Captain America and Wolverine and Spider-Man.
Oh, do they actually? That's so cool.
They say at one point it's like, and we caught up with some old friends, and it's bloody Stanley and Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Then at the end of the night, Ben's like, where are we going to now? And Storm's like, well, you know where we're going. They pull up somewhere. He's like, I don't know. He's like, just do it. And he goes in, and it's the apartment of Alicia Masters, who is Thing's girlfriend. And she opens the door, and for anyone who doesn't know, she's blind character. And she's like, hey, Ben, what's up? And he's like, something's happened. You should feel my face. And she feels his face and immediately starts crying. She's like, oh my God, Ben, is that you? And, and Johnny Storm's at the kind of ground floor, like, I did good. Like, so good on me.
Are they still together, though?
Yeah, currently, yeah. There's obviously she had a thing where her dad's a supervillain called he's like a puppet master or something.
I mean, the other, 51 weeks of the year.
Oh, yeah. They're still together, yeah.
But she just gets one night of non-Rocky loving.
Yes, exactly. And before you ask, we have no idea if they have sex or not when he's the Thing, because Marvel have never told us for very obvious reasons.
Which means, unfortunately, Ben doesn't even make it into the running on our top shagger list.
No, it depends how much he's getting in that 1 week. It's that old joke about like the average person has sex 50 times a year, where it's like, I'm in for a wild December. It's that whole thing. Do you have any more questions about the Thing's dick, or?
Well, I mean,
because I see that look on your face.
So many questions about the Thing's dick, but we just don't have time this week.
Put a pin in that for next time. So,
well, could you fit a pin in it? That's the point. Like, is it massive?
We don't know what a rocky urethra is like.
Because the thing is, right? We know
the thing is,
we know that Batman's hung.
Yep, we do know that now.
That's canon.
Yep.
We at least know that
you could argue it's not canon because it was a kind of weird thing where the Joker died and he came back and blah, blah, blah. Go on. I had to get one of those in.
We don't know about any other superheroes' dicks, though, in fairness.
No, we do not. And I think it's better for that.
Do you know what? Like, because the thing is, if they were going to give us that information, they would all have to have massive dicks. And so it's like, it would just become pointless.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be like, well, who's got the biggest? Oh, Superman's got the big. Well, Batman's got the biggest. It's like, no one's got dicks.
Superman doesn't have the biggest dick. He just has the best erectile function.
Erectile function?
Yeah.
Is that part of his specific powers?
Well, it would be, wouldn't it?
Only when the sun is shining.
At night, he can't get because he doesn't have to.
Yeah. If he's used his powers during the day, that's like, I'm tired. He's got one of those sun lamp things that people are like, I get vitamin C from this sun lamp thing or whatever. You know, that trend.
I mean, we know that Peter Parker's is radioactive.
I think, oh God. If anyone wondering, Spider-Man Rain, check out our episode on that, which I may link if I want to.
Yeah, because that was a weird week. Anyway, so the Thing goes to see his girlfriend.
But anyway, I was just saying it was a nice moment where, she cries and they have an emotional thing. But what is especially interesting is they've already told you one of the Fantastic Four is going to die. And then I thought it's pretty clever to then set up, like, the Thing's normally pretty indestructible. Like, that's kind of his powers.
And now he's very vulnerable.
And now he's really vulnerable. So I thought you put him in that position. Sue is thousands of league underwater and caught in this kind of crossfire. And at one point they're like, Namor is like, yeah, they brought you here because they're going to kill you, kind of thing. And then Reed's
on the other side of a portal doing whatever the fuck he's up to
with Galactus. And like I mentioned before, the conversation between Reed and Galactus, I think was, again, we have nothing to compare this to. It felt accurate for a genius talking to a cosmic being. Yeah. You know? Galactus talks in very grand terms and that kind of stuff.
And also the point where he's like, Reed's like, I'm going to try and save everyone. And Galactus is like, you do what you need to do. I'm going to start eating people, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to start munching.
And the Galactus, it's almost like he's kind of confused or bemused by. He's kind of like, you have one chance to go back and you can go back to your Earth and save it from me because we have this agreement now and you're risking, because if you don't go back, then that I could just go and eat it.
Yeah.
But it's like, so you could go back and protect your world, but you're going to risk that to try and save these aliens or sentient AIs or whatever the fuck they were. Like, he's kind of like, is he confused? Is he like, I can't believe you're doing this? Is he like, does he pity it almost? He's like, you a fool. Like, why are you doing this? Like, because he talks in such like a neutral tone as a cosmic god. I thought that was especially interesting. So Reed's in a precarious spot as well. And then we get back.
Johnny's duking it out.
Well, then you get the build up to the Annihilation Wave. So this one I don't know much about except for this title.
Yeah.
Basically, Annihilation. Try and say that fast. The Annihilation Wave. Okay. It's basically a interdimensional like race of like army, basically. An army of these kind of lizard robot kind of things. And the wave is just they open a portal and they just come and just destroy everything wherever they get to. And they've tried to get to Earth and failed in the past. So now Earth is quite high up on there. Like, we really need to get Earth. Like, we've been
there's a bunch of superheroes there for some reason.
There's 4 of them that keep beating us every time, and we just need to get it. So they're coming, and I liked a little bit of detail where they're like, it's just Johnny and Ben, and Ben's not powered at all. So it's them and a bunch of intelligent kids who are kind of like running around like, we're trying to be, and also we're really smart and stuff. There's one kid who really loves making bombs. Who I really liked. At one point he makes a bomb and he kisses it and then throws it.
It looks like a Pokeball, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then later he's like, I can make a really big bomb here. And they're like, chill, like, calm down.
Fucking Unabomber in the corner.
Yeah. It's like, maybe he could be influenced in a different way. Maybe. But so, yeah, it's all kicking off. The detail I like is they're like, the Avengers are on their way.
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing with this Marvel universe. Like, when something big happens, surely call one of the big teams to come and help. This is the case of like, we've called them, they're on their way, but also the portal is right there and it's opening and they're coming
going
through
down.
And stuff. So you have Johnny and Ben and these kids kind of dealing with it. And then again, lovely little detail, Franklin Richards. Yeah. He's actually like an infinitely powerful being.
Yeah.
And it's hinted at all through this series, like leading up to, but there's a nice little nod here where Reed and Galactus are talking, and Galactus is like, by the way, like, I wanted to get away from Earth myself as well, because I felt something happening here. Like, what's going on with your son? Like, and Reed's like, I know. Oh no, he doesn't even say that, but like that's a cliffhanger at a point, which is quite interesting, because like, Galactus is afraid of your child. You're gonna be like, what's going on here? The nice little detail turns out is one of the kids is not a genius character that's revealed earlier, but it's a mutant child called Leech.
Yeah.
And Leech's thing is he negates other people's powers, and maybe he's controlled it here where he's not close to, like, Human Storm or Ben Grimm when he's rock form, whatever, but he's roommates with Franklin Richards. So, and then he's like, punch me, and everyone's like, what's he saying? And he's like, oh, that's why so they knock him out, and Frank's like, it's like Super Saiyan, and then he's knocking out Annihilation Wave, and it's like, there's more coming, we need to close the portal thing, and then it gets to the penultimate, like, someone needs to close this portal on this side, someone has to stay behind. And I thought this was a very basics done well kind of thing.
Well, it was either going to be Johnny or Ben, wasn't it?
Exactly. And Ben is just immediately like, it's just got to be me. Like, obviously it's got to be me. And doing it. And then Johnny just kicks him out through the portal and closes it quickly. And I really loved, I think as a credit to this whole series and even in this arc, the characters do look quite similar a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But when there is needed emotion, I think they are shown quite well.
They have it.
Ben is emotional, like, when he realizes what's happening, and he's crying, like, talking to Johnny, and Johnny's just like trying to play it cool, like, bet you wish, like, I can't remember what he says. He says something like, bet you didn't think I was going to do that, or something like that. And then Ben has the door, so the portal, there's a force field, and then the actual door's closed, and you can't see. When the doors close, Ben starts turning into the thing
and smashing,
he's banging on and he's shouting no, and it's like the look on his face. Then when he's Rock, you can still see the anguish on his face, and I thought that's a great.
So does Johnny stay dead for a while?
It's interesting. There's an
annual. The answer to that question.
There's an annual that comes up a couple issues after this where it kind of reveals what's happened to him. Yeah. He is stuck in that realm, so that's kind of the better way to look at it. It's not that he's dead, but he is stuck in. You can't get him back. Like their point was they closed that portal so no one else get through. He kind of gets stuck in because technically things can't die in this end universe, whatever. Yeah. But what it does mean is that he gets killed and brought back by these alien things over and over again. Yeah. So there's scenes in this later thing where he's literally like waking up on a surgery table and they're kind of stitching him together with organic like worms and stuff. And it's like it's really like alien-esque, like sci-fi violent kind of thing. So it looks kind of horrific.
Bit fucked up.
Yeah. All right, so that even though he doesn't die, it looks like a really bad fate. So you're not kind of like, oh, he's fine. Yeah. Like, it's not that.
He's chilling. He's having a great time.
So, yeah. But I thought one of the reasons I thought was good to do this arc is they really kind of hone how emotional this moment is. Yeah. And it's not just, it's the best you can do in a world where characters don't properly die. Yeah. It's like, well, let's at least have the effects shown on the characters.
So how long does he stay gone for?
I can't remember. I think he might come back in this run, but I think it's several issues, like loads of issues beforehand. Like this ran for years, this run. So I don't know.
And I suppose does the focus of the run then become getting Johnny back?
No, they don't even. So they replace it with someone. I can't remember who. But so there is the issue after this, which I said if you had time to skim, you did not have time.
Lol, did not.
But I can just tell you what it is.
LDR.
Yeah. But you would have enjoyed it because what it is, it's an issue with almost no dialogue. And it's about the members dealing with their grief. So there's dialogue towards the end for a very good reason. But a lot of it is like the Avengers turn up and you just see the look on their faces when they realize that. Also, the last panel of that last issue of the proper run or proper arc is the Thing holding Valeria and Franklin and just crying, huddling each other. But you get the Reed and Sue arrive back and you get the Avengers turn up and they realize what's going on and everyone's just immediately sad. There's no dialogue, but it's just like the look on everyone's faces. Yeah. And then you have these dialogue-less scenes where Reed goes to comfort Sue and Sue puts up a shield around her. Like, I don't want him right now. Yeah. And Reed just kind of sleeks away like sad himself, like he went to comfort, but it was him who needed comforting. You have the foundation group, the kids, who they start listing like replacements for Johnny, and then then Valeria wipes off the board because she's like, and her expression is like, actually fuck that, and then just writes on the board how to kill the Annihilation Wave.
Right. Okay.
So it's like, let's get revenge kind of thing. Then towards the end of this issue, you have Franklin Richards. Reed, yeah, Franklin Richards. We might have mistakenly said Reed as a surname at points. Yeah. Franklin Richards is hanging out on a rooftop somewhere, and Spider-Man turns up. Right. And Spider-Man, I don't know if you know it's not, Spider-Man and Human Torch are like buddies. Like
that makes sense. They're about the same age.
Exactly, yeah. So Spider-Man like knows what's obviously happened, and he's like, hey, how are you getting on and stuff. And this is like where the dialogue begins, like towards the end of the issue. Yeah. And they're talking. And basically the premise is like, Spider-Man's like, hey, you know, me and your uncle Johnny were good mates. And he's like, oh, really? Like, I didn't know that. Like, yeah, we've been busy. Like, we haven't, so, you know, that kind of dialogue. And then what it ties nicely into is like Spider-Man being like, you know, I lost my uncle. And that connection of like, I know kind of what you're going through. Because Franklin, he's like, I'm really powerful. I don't know I struggle to control my powers. I feel like I could have saved him. Like I could have beat the Annihilation Wave. No one would have had to stay, and I could have, sorted this, whatever. And Spider-Man's like, I know I could have saved my Uncle Ben. And he's, I let a robber get away, and then he killed him well, he just says, like,
Does he say the thing?
No, I was looking for it.
Were you waiting for the thing? Were you waiting for great power, great responsibility?
Yeah. I don't think he said he hints towards it or something.
That's cool.
Which is better, yeah. But the way it ends with, what was your uncle's name? And it's like, my uncle's name was Ben. And it just has like Uncle Ben and Johnny kind of like in the, like faded in the sky kind of thing. That's cool. So yeah, ends on a nice touch. But anyway, I've not mentioned nearly half the stuff I made notes of, but the only reason I say that is I highly recommend this to anyone. Yeah. If you've listened to us talking about this and you haven't read this is a fraction of the entire Hickman run.
This has been one of those occasions where my opinion has grown of the comic through talking about it. And that happens sometimes, doesn't it? Where one of us will come out of it lukewarm, and then because the other one's quite excited and they talk about the things that they were excited about reading it kind of ignites a bit of interest.
As it's one of the best aspects of Hickman's writing for me is he leaves room for you to infer stuff. And that's probably my favorite reading, especially comics, like reading comics, is I love when I can fill in the blanks, but I'm not required to.
We had this conversation about Ultimate X-Men last week, didn't we?
Yes, yeah. So the fact I'm able to infer, but it's also it doesn't scan like that. Whereas Ultimate X-Men, I think it does look ambiguous at points, and it kind of is saying, hey, you might want to pay attention and infer what's going on here.
Yeah.
This, I think, it doesn't appear that way, but if you then get engaged, it's almost like a subtle, like, dark horse of there's actually a lot to infer here.
Yeah.
Especially, again, all the points where there's no dialogue. Like, there's a point way early on where Valeria's relaying a story to Doom about what she did with Reed's portal machine.
Yes.
That style, no dialogue.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that.
Exactly, yeah. As her mincing around with the Council of Reeds, which is basically all the arsehole versions of Reeds who have formed together a council, and our Reed is like, you guys are a bit mental.
You guys are fucking weird, man.
They're like, we've forsaken our families to the goal of curing the world and all its problems. And Reed's like, Sue won't let me.
There's a lot of, like, Fantastic Four nods in Rick and Morty, isn't there?
Yeah, I'd say so,
The Council of Ricks.
Yeah, 100%. The Mr. Nimbus is
Mr.
Namor.
Nimbus.
Rick's car is basically the Fantastic Car.
Yeah.
Like, except his is a single seat, and the Fantastic Four obviously has 4, like, separate components. But yeah, I'd say so.
And the fact that he dunks on what is essentially the Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, Reed is like, yeah, we'll be there to help and stuff, and if you need us, we're not going to attend the meetings. Like, he's that kind of, I have science to do.
Yeah.
Which is Rick. So, yeah, it ties in nicely.
Do him and Tony Stark get on?
In kind of a way, they respect each other as the smartest in their fields.
Right.
And their fields are kind of, so Stark is obviously more tech-based and, mechanics and the hardware. And
engineering.
Reed is more theoretical physics.
Yeah.
So, but they can both do each other's stuff, but they recognize, like, I'm better at this, you're better than that.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of thing. But yeah, that kind of thing where it's like, I don't think either of them appreciate not being the smartest person in the room. That kind of thing.
Right. Do we know what RBJ's role, like, what is going on with RBJ as Doom?
No, do you mean RDJ? You're saying RBJ.
RDJ.
That was a Freudian slip.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
We don't know. There's a great video on YouTube about it by a YouTuber called Comic Stan who gets it theorizes about what they might do on it.
Right.
Personally, coincidentally, I have a similar opinion. I think
you literally introduce yourself as Comic Stan.
Yeah. I think the best route is for them to have him just be Doom, not connected to Tony Stark at all. And I think in terms of how he looks, he should wear the mask all the time.
Yeah.
And if they take the mask off, he should just be completely disfigured. So I think completely separate the characters. I think RDJ wants that challenge of getting across the emotion of a character while wearing a mask the entire time. Like, I think he's up for that.
Because he didn't spend that much time in the Iron Man mask in any of the Iron Man films.
I mean, I would say if ever. I don't think he ever did, really. Like, that worst, he had the outline of, it's like the helmet that his face was showing.
Yeah.
And that would be for when they would CGI the faceplate coming up or disappearing or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the only time he did that kind of stuff. He probably did voice over.
Oh no, I meant like Tony Stark didn't spend a lot of time in the Iron Man suit in the films. He was often just Tony.
Yeah, I think he spent a decent amount of time because what they would do is they would have him in the armor, and they would then have that camera shot of in the helmet.
Yeah,
where it's like he's got the screen like right up against his face kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's how they should do it. I think that's probably how they will do it. The one clue that we've had, or that I've seen, and I think I would have seen if anything else, because as we've said, I'm terminally online all the time. My phone keeps telling me I'm somehow spending more time on my phone. And I'm like, that's not possible. Like, I don't have any extra hours to do that. The clue they've given, I think, has come from the Russo brothers, who are directing both the big Avengers film. Their clue they gave was the death of Tony Stark is somehow related to Doom appearing. somehow.
Right.
That's all they've given. I think that's a bit of a red herring, and I think it's one of those, like, it's technically true, but it's not what you think it means, where I think the surface meaning is they are somehow connected or they are interdimensional versions of each other.
And this
I don't
next phase of the Avengers, we get Sam as Cap, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, he is currently Cap, yeah.
Is Peter going to be there, Peter Parker?
He should be, yeah. I think Sony and Marvel worked out a new deal where they've got, like, X amount of films now. And he's going to be the most Spider-Man he's ever been, because he should really be just kicking about in New York, which we haven't seen the Spider-Man do.
No.
So he should just be Spider-Maning about in New York.
Nobody knows who he is.
Exactly. He's got the shitty little apartment, which is classic Peter Parker.
Yeah.
He's got to take his GED because the Peter Parker identity was erased. They've got to somehow work out, it's like, you don't have a social security number or something like that. And he doesn't know anyone who could fix it like he could before.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how they square that circle.
Are we getting any Spider-Man in this next phase, like solo Spider-Man?
Yeah, there's going to be a Spider-Man film. They've announced. Yeah, they announced the name, and I can't remember if we went over or not.
No,
they announced the title, and it's Spider-Man: Brand New Day. And Brand New Day is an interesting title because it's the title of the comic that took place immediately following One More Day.
Yeah.
Which is, for anyone who doesn't know, the famous Spider-Man sells his marriage to Mephisto to save Aunt May.
Yeah.
Which fans hated.
It's the one with Twatlugs in it, isn't it? Doctor Strange.
What?
Doctor Strange.
Yes, Doctor Strange, yeah.
Twatlugs is what my dad called me when I was a kid. It's an affectionate thing, but it's just what I say. It's like, what's his name?
Yeah, it explains a lot about you.
But I just find it a bit funny being like, oh, fucking Twatlugs was here earlier. What's his name?
Yes. Americans like, what is this?
Yeah, I don't know if Americans have a like corollary in American English for like, oh, what's his name?
Probably what's his name?
Yeah, probably what's his name.
What's that guy's face? You know, that one. If there's any Americans listening on that, they're probably like, what in the hell is this Mary Poppins gibberish I'm hearing?
I mean, surely any Americans that listen to our podcast come solely for the fact that it is Mary Poppins bullshit.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe us, even to British people. It's like Mary Poppins bullshit versus comic books.
That's exactly what it is.
I think that's a good note to end on. And also, it's really fucking hot in here and you need to go.
Yeah, well, we managed to keep it like well within an hour and a half. We did like a solid hour.
I mean, let's be honest, if I didn't cut off now, the tangent could be Americanism comic book bullshit. Like that would be a whole tangent in itself.
There could be a whole 30 minutes where I just talk about Mary Poppins bullshit.
Yeah, but I'm about to eat some ice cream as soon as we finish.
I'm going to make dinner.
Oh, I mean, right now, the ice cream is medicinal at this point.
Yeah.
I refuse to enjoy it. It's purely for cold purposes. Anyway, I'm fucking freaking it. I'm melting down now in every way possible. So here's a recording of me and tell them bye.
Peace.
And thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to get notified of our future episodes as well. And if you're feeling particularly generous, then please leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're using. If you'd like to get in contact with us, then send an email to comiclit@gmail.com. You can also watch videos by me on the Comic Stand YouTube page, which is linked in the description. Thank you, goodbye.